The Gotham Knights are starting to see red. You should look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Gotham Knights Red Hood. Jason Todd is an intense and volatile anti-hero. It all stems from dying a violent death and then being forcibly resurrected by one of Batman's most dangerous foes. He has trouble keeping his temper in check, but will not hesitate to step into the line of fire when a friend is threatened. Red Hood wants crime to pay because Gotham City is built on a foundation of corruption and has been on the receiving end of it far too often. Jason is trained to reach to the peak of human strength, and he is proficient in multiple combat techniques with all manner of weapons, both traditional and high-tech. After reconciling with the Batman family, he has embraced Batman's non-lethal combat methods. We seem to be hitting quite the quota lately with Red Hoods. Before we get a look at the newest one from McFarlane Toys, let's go ahead and grab the ruler to figure out how tall the Gotham Knights version of Red Hood is. If I'm looking at this correctly, Red Hood is 7¼ inches in height, or a little over 18 centimeters tall. Yes, quite the quota. To show you what I'm talking about, let's bring in the original Red Hood, which was really a fine figure for its time. I still think it's a nice looking figure, and one thing it can say it has that the newest Red Hood from Gotham Knights can't is that the original Red Hood also came included with guns. Yeah. Big old bummer that's actually plaguing the DC Multiverse stuff is the fact that none of them can come included with guns, or really anything considered like an assault weapon can't come included with these figure releases. And I think that's the one thing that's sort of really tainting this line. If you're going to be getting a Red Hood, you'd like to think that he could come included with guns. And the newest one just can't. Now, that wasn't the only time that we did get ourselves a Red Hood. There was also this guy as well. This is the gold label released Red Hood, which is basically just the same as the one next to it, other than this one does have an unmasked head sculpt. This is one thing they do a lot with the gold label releases. It's basically the same figure before, just re-released with a different color scheme in a lot of cases, or in the case of Red Hood here, just giving an unmasked head sculpt, which really could have come included with the first time they released the figure and not double dip them. That wasn't also the last time that we got ourselves a Red Hood. We just recently had a look at, not too long ago here on this channel, this guy. Again, I can get his feet straightened up. This was the DC Rebirth Red Hood. And again, they're all sort of different from one another, but sort of still checking off the boxes that make up Red Hood. Now, the newest release doesn't, again, have the weapons, but one thing he does have over top of all the other Red Hoods is his size. He is definitely a lot bigger and a bulkier Red Hood of previously looked at Red Hoods here on this channel. The figure comes included with some accessories, and I have to say it's a real letdown. The figure, yes, comes included with a display stand, and yes, comes included with a trading card, but then comes included with what I feel are laughable hands. We're going to talk more about that in a second. Starting first, though, the figure comes included with a trading card, and once again, you can see that they're using a photo of the figure than rather using the source material. It's nice to see at least they put it in a pretty decent looking pose and put a rather interesting looking background behind it, so it's not simply just the figure standing on a shelf somewhere. You can clearly see, though, that they haven't decided to put any weapons in his hand. No sense in teasing collectors out there that wanted to point at the card and say, well, I want the accessories that are in that figure's hands. No. This figure doesn't come included with that either. On the back is quite a lengthy looking read-up. You can either pause this for yourself and read it for yourself, or if you prefer your books on tape, it was simply just the same paragraph I read at the beginning of this review as well. So you get yourself a trading card. I mean, still, all the McFarlane Multiverse figures have come included with trading cards, and this Red Hood is no exception. Speaking of no exceptions, the figure also comes included with a display stand. Yes, the same type of display stand as we got with all the other figure releases. Not going to eat up a lot of your viewing time by you guys having to sit and me talking about this display stand. It's literally the same one that we've gotten with all other cases before. What I do want to eat up a little bit of time talking about, though, is the next things that we're going to have a look at, and that's his hands. Now, again, I did say that none of these figures really can come included with guns anymore. It seems to be some mandate that they've put in place where I would imagine McFarlane loves his guns. I would imagine if they would include guns with this figure, but unfortunately they can't. I feel adding insult to the injury, though, is what they included for his hands. And I'm going to show you guys what they look like right now. I am not even going to spend the time to actually put this into the sockets of his forearms because, again, I just feel like it's insult to injury. If you can't include guns, don't include gun hands. If it was a character like the Joker, I could dismiss it and say, okay, Joker's being silly. He's pointing the gun, his invisible gun to his head and pretending he's shooting his brains out. But not for a character like Red Hood. Why would he include gun hands like this? I feel, if anything, it's a waste of plastic. I'm never going to display him with this. If anything, I'm going to be going only back to my tickle trunk of other accessories. I'm just going to use a gun from another Red Hood. I'm not going to use those. Why would they even take the time to mold these in the first place? It's almost as if McFarlane's team is laughing at the idea that they can't include guns. Well, we can't include guns? Company that's telling us we can't use guns? Well, that's fine. We're just going to use gun hands instead. Again, I think that's absolutely laughable. So I'm going to put those to the side. Picking the figure up now. Now, this is based on the design of him from Gotham Knights. So he's a little bit different than the other Red Hoods that we've gotten before. I kind of like the design of this one, too. It still checks off what I would consider the boxes that would make up Red Hood. Like, for example, his big Red Hood logo there. It's a little harder to get that out. It's not that much different, really, than the original one we got before. I'm going to bring in the original Red Hood right now so you can see. It's not as wide, no. It's not as bright, no, either. But it's still about the same shape and design of logo. It's just a little bit smaller. It takes up less space on his body. Whereas this one would have had, say, the original one would have had the jacket over top of his suit. This one actually incorporates more like a sleeveless hoodie as part of his suit. It looks like it would be also bulletproof, or at least impenetrable to most attacks, I would imagine. It fits pretty tight to his body. And it looks like it was only molded in the same brown plastic. It doesn't look like it's actually been painted in. They still kept the hood in on the back of it, which really isn't credit to the figure, but it's credit to the design of the character from the comics. I really like the fact that they still kept the hood in place. I like this suit. I think it actually works quite well for the character, and I like the colors that they chose for the figure as well. Really keeping to more of a dark gunmetal gray for his sleeves and his lower legs, and keeping more to a muted brown for like the coloring of his mid-torso sleeveless vest. The head sculpt, I would say, is one of my favorites of the Red Hoods we've gotten before. The most recently looked at one here on this channel was the DC Rebirth one. And I liked it. I liked the shinier metallic red that they've used for it. But admittingly, I think I even mentioned it in the review that I thought the head looked too squished, too squashed. This one certainly checks the boxes a lot more for me. If you guys are interested as well, you can also take the head sculpt off. I'm going to just yank it from the ball joint. And one thing I was unable to do is remove the post. But one thing I just did want to show you guys, I'm going to remove the one that came included for the Rebirth. A little bit harder to remove. Even though the peg is left behind, I wanted to show you guys like the sockets, the holes inside. I don't know if you guys can actually see it or not. Even though, again, like this one hasn't been removed, it looks like it's using a very similar, if not the same shape inside. So if you wanted to, you could technically use this Red Hood. I'm just going to pretend it's there right now. And I think that actually gives you a nice looking Red Hood. It would have to mean, unfortunately, you sacrifice the head that comes included with the Gotham Knights. But yeah, it kind of keeps the colors a little bit more closer to the ones, like the coloring of the red that he has underneath his jacket. If you guys wanted to go that route instead. I'm going to just move the decapitated one out of the way and just put this one back in the socket here. There we go. Yeah, I do like the head sculpt. I think it works really well. It's not shiny red like the ones that we got before. But I got to say, like, it looks a lot more like Red Hood to me. The sculpting is really good, right down to the fact that they actually sculpt in like little wrinkles and way it stretches across his face. The darker colors of the black work well, not to mention these little beady white eyes that they've sculpted and painted in there as well. It's a really nice looking head sculpt for Red Hood. And like the sculpting is good for it. The one thing that kind of bothers me though is on the back of the figure, they put little magazine clips here for guns that unfortunately don't come included with the figure. Again, it's right up there with the gun finger hands. If you're not going to include guns. Now, again, this would be a little bit more dismissive because looking at that, that's based on the design of the character. But just teasing for the fact that he does have the magazines on the back, and unfortunately doesn't come included with guns, I think is just, again, insult to injury. The coloring, again, is good on this guy, making use of the darker gunmetal gray we mentioned already, some nice little straps of burgundy red, which happens to match the same color that he used also for the tops of his shoulders and the hood as well. For the articulation here on Red Hood, starting things off first with his head sculpt, it does rotate all the way around. It can look up, and it can also look down, and as well back and forth. I thought maybe he may have had a secondary ball joint, but no, it's sculpted in his neck underneath the actual hooded piece of his torso. His arms come out, and this one is a little more stubborn than the two, but you can still pull off a 90-degree angle bend, successfully, without problems. Arms can rotate all the way around. The figure does have a bicep swivel, and again, just look at the sculpting there on those arms. Very, very muscular looking Red Hood. A lot more muscular than the ones that we looked at before. I like also the way they've sculpted in the gauntlets. I guess they're part of his gloves, a little higher up, that cover off his forearms, like forearm guards, for example. But he does have a double hinge on the elbow, so that's good. At least he does have that. And the figure does also have a swivel in hands, rotating all the way around. Personally, again, going back to these gun hands, I'm never going to display it with the figure. I feel that's an insult to Red Hood to have to yank these off and replace it with one of these. Just for the record, though, he does actually have a closed fist on the one side. I don't know why, as of late, McFarlane seems to be insistent on putting closed fists on one side and then a gripping hand on the other. And even then, this gripping hand, it doesn't look like it's designed to actually hold a gun. It looks like it's actually designed to hold a knife, just by the closer quarters of the way he's gripping. But unfortunately, again, the figure doesn't include any accessories other than silly-looking hands. For the rest of the articulation, the figure has an upper torso ball joint. You can rotate that all the way around. This lower half, by the way, is a softer plastic, and basically what it is, it's skirting over top of the lower waist, and the waist does have a waist swivel. The legs do split out, a little tighter, and it's not going to butt up against these clips, so you don't really have to worry about that, but it's more so the sculpting on the top of it. It just really makes things tight when it comes to giving him a Van Damme splits. The legs can go forward, and the legs can go back. He doesn't have any swivel break up here. Nothing is cut here on the thigh. Instead, what they ended up doing was they gave it a double hinge on the knee. There's one, and the other one's right there. He has no articulation for the tops of his boot, because his boot is just simply a continuation on the sculpting of his lower calf. But the figure does have at least ankle pivots. I unfortunately have to report that this ankle on this figure is loose already. I don't know why it had to be so loose. I literally just took this figure out about an hour ago from his plastic prison, and already he's got loose ankles. They haven't even reused this mold either. I can't imagine that they've used this leg from other figures. It's just unfortunately loose immediately out of the factory. He does have an ankle pivot, so that's good. And the figure does also have toe articulation. I would have preferred if the toe was looser of the two and made the ankle actually tighter. But unfortunately, no, that's the luck of the draw. Nice looking figure, though. If you can overlook, really, for the fact that the figure has disappointing accessories. Just a personal opinion only, but I would say, like, again, if they can't include guns with these figures, don't include gun hands. I think, again, that's just more insult than anything else. We can just bring in the other Red Hoods. And you guys can certainly let me know down below. Oh, by the way, we should also probably put the head back on place on this one, so we don't actually lose it. Popping the head back into place there. We'll just leave it on there for the time being. It sort of just looks like a bobblehead. I'm going to put that on a little bit later. But still, yeah, I mean, we've gotten ourselves tons and tons, well, tons if you can technically count 4 different Red Hood figures. That looks so awkward. And again, the unmasked version, that now gives us 4 Red Hoods. Boy, McFarlane really does love his Bat family. It's not even just really Red Hoods, too. Any of the characters that make up the Bat family, he loves to churn out in quantities. I would say, though, even though it doesn't have the most purest look for Red Hood, if you want that classic look, then maybe the newest Red Hood isn't for you. But I would say of all the ones that we've gotten so far now, 4, and I'm sure there's probably going to be more, this is one of my favorite Red Hoods. It's not your traditional looking Red Hood, but the sculpting is really good. He's nice, big, and bulky. The only thing that really lets down this figure is not the figure itself, it's what comes included with the figure, which really, again, I find is more insulting than anything else. Here in final looks, Gotham Knight's Red Hood is shaking his fist. Now, we can all guess as to what he's shaking his fist about. Does it have something to do with the fact that he does have a fist in the first place instead of a gripping hand? Maybe it has something to do with the fact he doesn't come included with guns? Oh, it has something to do with the fact he doesn't come included with guns, and then they've included alternate hands in the shape of guns. Yes, that's probably what it is. I can totally agree with you, hand-shaking Red Hood. It's nonsense to think that I can understand why they can't include guns. There's some mandate in place. Kids apparently can't have action figures that have guns because it teaches them that guns are okay. Don't think it has anything to do with that. But if you can include guns with your figures, again, I don't think it's a good idea to include hands that are in the shapes of guns. Because who's going to be displaying their Red Hood with bang-bang gun hands? I certainly will not. If they can include guns, then I would go to the next option available. Because there's got to be other options available. Could they not have included a crowbar? Is that too violent for kids? Okay, we can't include a crowbar. Could they have included anything? Anything at all other than gun, powie, gun hands? There's got to be something other than that they could include with the figure. because I just feel, again, it's absolutely silly that they would have included those hands in the first place. I personally will never display Red Hood with those hands, and I think if anything, it's a waste of plastic completely. If not for that, I really like the look of Red Hood quite a lot. The head sculpt, I have to say, is probably one of the best Red Hood heads that we've gotten so far. And I say so far because we're probably still going to get a lot more of these. McFarlane loves his Bat family. The body is sculpted decently. I don't think there's really a lot of paint going on here. Most of it is just the molded plastic, but it comes together nicely to give us a Red Hood. Whether you've decided to pick this one up for yourself, let me know down below in the comment section. Are you displaying him with the Pow Pow gun hands? I'm totally not going to display him with the Pow Pow gun hands. What do you guys think of the figure, though? Let me know down below in the comments section. And of course, if you are new to this channel, you're enjoying the content that you're seeing, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. And make sure you, as well, you turn on the bell notification so you get those friendly reminders. And pew, 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 pew. Those are my gun hands right now behind the camera. Make sure you're keeping your peepers peeled, because while we have wrapped up things on the rotisserie here for the Gotham Knights Red Hood, there will be, in fact, more McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse reviews coming your way in the not-so-distant future. Pew, pew, pew. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.